Hi everyone, it's the Lone Tweedle here, and today we're back with some Tweedle lore. And now we're going to be speaking about a specific chapter within this bard's life, and they are some inked stories. So let's get started. So this is Tweedle lore. So with these tattoos, they're not just a collection of tattoos, but they're a collection of moments all across my arms of decisions, symbols, and fragments of a story that I did not fully understand when I was living within it. And each piece was chosen with time, reflection, and intention. And before I begin, I would like to say two things. Yes, as a Christian, I get tattoos. I will explain that in another video. But also, I made sure I would pray for every single tattoo, and I will mention how some of them even link to my faith. And genuinely, I would never get a tattoo that did not represent God, did not represent me. These tattoos, they had to be the right tattoos. I was not going to get the wrong thing on my body. And secondly, for the artists that did these tattoos, I'm going to do my best to tag them and I'll mention their names and their studio if you well, for you guys if you guys want to see it, because to me their work is part of the story just as much as the meaning behind the tattoos as well. So let's start with the first one. So my first tattoo, it includes soot sprites, and you're probably thinking, Jess, what on earth are soot sprites? Soot sprites are specifically from Spirited Away, or you can find them in My Neighbor Totoro, but mine is specifically with Spirited Away. And I will show you here, and I'll also add a picture for you. Here it is. It's a very old one, but here's my first tattoo. Personally, love this one. Big memory. So like I said, this was my first tattoo, and I'm going to try to go in chronological order for you as well. And I remember I cried through most of this tattoo. If we did not stop to take a 10-15 minute break, we would have done this in 30 minutes. I'm not kidding. And because most of my tattoos, they didn't take very long, they took about 30 to 45 minutes, the line work is actually what hurt the most. And I cried so much through the line work, which only took 15 minutes. It was like I was competing with the Niagara Falls, and obviously eventually lost because I stopped crying at some point. But yeah, 15 minutes line work, 15 minutes shading in and colouring in, and it was mainly just shading in this lump of coal right here. But I will say, when it came to crying, it's not specifically just because of the pain, because I'm terrible with pain. It will also be because there's something permanent that I've had within me for so long that I'd only ever really carried internally, and to now have that physical reminder on myself, it meant a lot. It was very freeing, and I very much enjoyed the freedom that I had from that. Yeah. But this tattoo, to me, it represents the idea that even when you feel small, you can still accomplish big things. Whether they be, I don't know, you could go up on stage and speak to 1,000 people if you wanted to. It could be doing a group project where you have to present in front of a class. It could genuinely just be accomplishing something like, I don't know, tidying your entire room, which is something I need to do. And I think what's really important with this image is soot sprites are so small. I think they're literally meant to be like the size of my eye socket here. Like, they're like that big. They're tiny, and they carry a weight, aka this block of coal here, that could overwhelm them each individually. And we learn from Chihiro, the main character of the film, that these lumps of coal are heavy, and every single night, all night, these soot sprites are walking back and forth across quite a large room for someone of their size, carrying a block of coal, throwing them into the furnace, heading back to do another one. And they continue. And you're thinking, oh, they're just, to be able to just do that act within itself, that's already a big feat. But if you didn't realise this, what are they heating? They're heating a bathhouse, which must be at least 100 stories. Because you see in the lift when Chihiro goes to meet Yubaba, I believe her name is, the boss of the bathhouse. You see it's a huge bathhouse, and these guys, by heating up this fire, even as a collective, they're big and they're strong, but through what they are doing, they are heating this entire bathhouse, which is the main place and the set of this film. And I just think that's really inspiring, and they continue to do that literally every single night. And they argue with Kamaji all the time, who is the boiler man who makes sure the fire is going well and enough water is heated for the bathhouse. And I don't know why, it's very deeply comforting within me. And I think what's very important to remember in this entire thing is smallness does not equal insignificance. And it'll be something that comes up within other tattoos, but it's very important to remember that. And I know I definitely needed to remember that growing up. But yeah, and this tattoo was done by a wonderful artist named Billy. And I will make sure I tag him, so if you want to check out his work and you're in the UK and you want to get tattooed by him, go check it out. He is currently, from what I last checked, at Ultimate Inked Tattoo. And he's a wonderful artist. Okay, my second tattoo is this wonderful little red panda right here. They're actually, fun fact, their Latin name translates to firecat, which basically says that when they were found, no one knew what they were. And we still don't really know what they are, because they're not a panda, in the sense of the big black and white ones. And these were found first. But basically, I love red pandas, I always have. And I will say that my top 3 animals, number 1 will always be the African lion, because of the Chronicles of Narnia, and Aslan and everything. But on top of that, I'll say that number 2 and 3, it's currently tied between the Canadian sea otter and a red panda, just like this one. And you'll notice that with this specific tattoo and design, he is stood up in a defensive position. So for red pandas, when they are feeling threatened, they stand up and they reach their arms up as tall as they can because they basically want to seem bigger than the other one or whatever is threatening them, just to scare them off, because I believe they're similar to cats in the sense where they don't actually want to fight, but they'll try to threaten the other one to run away. But to me, this actually represents something else. For me, and for a lot of people, this looks like they want to hug, which is untrue for the sense of red pandas. But for me, myself, I will say in a lot of stressful situations, I want to hug. And it's a quiet signal for me to remember that in a stressful situation, to just utilize, this arms outstretched, just be like, let it be like a little quiet signal, a request for comfort, and a need for grounding when it comes to the people I care about the most, especially my boyfriend. And I've learned that I kind of need that when I'm stressed. I don't need to push away from people. I don't need to isolate people. I actually need to let people in, because the more I isolate myself, the worse it becomes. And so if you need to, well, not you don't need to, but if you ever feel this way, do not push away. If you need time to calm down, that's fine, but do make sure that if you need someone to help you, that you do go step out and take that step. Because I'm telling you, it is a lot of the time it is a lot better. Just make sure you tell the right person. And yeah, but for this beautiful little red panda, he was also done by Billy. He was done about around a year later after this one. So he got to see how this one healed, and this one has now healed very well. And I love this tattoo. I often forget my shoulders and the top parts of my arms, specifically just because I cover my arms so much. When I remember, when I show my arms, I notice them again, and I remember, and I smile, and I just get very happy. And I'm reminded of what I need to do, and a lot of the times I take take away the sleeves, and it reminds me of something that I do need to do at this moment in time. Okay, third tattoo. This was done exactly a week after my red panda, and I call this one Galaxy Cat. And here it comes. Here she is. Originally, I got this tattoo to be a matching tattoo with an old friend, but I will say that I never want to get a tattoo just as a matching tattoo. Like, I refuse, because what if, in a year's time you no longer know each other, you no longer really talk, or you have like the biggest argument ever, and you just don't want to be linked to someone like that with a tattoo. So I made sure tattoos are different, because I'm not getting the exact same one, and two, that it had a second meaning. And for me, it represented my cat Sooty at the time. As you can see, we had the cat changed to look like my cat, and it just represented this broad idea that I'm never alone. And I think now, as life has gone on, it has represented more so about animals, how much I love animals, and it's depicted in such like a fantasy way. Like, it's actually laying on the moon. There's like the rings of Saturn or something there. There's like a planet up here, and there are some stars dotted around. That is so insanely, to me, that's just so cool, and it really represents for me the way I hold animals to a completely different regard than I do humans. Like, when I say animals up here, humans down here, you can really tell with this one. And for me, it's just showcased. Animals are just showcased through the most recognisable one for me. Yeah, I love this tattoo. But what can begin as one connection can become something so much larger, like I said. So now I know as well, like, it extends to more than a single moment, person or animal, especially knowing that I mentioned in my reasoning as to why Sooty was so important to me, that after I moved out, she may have no longer been there, but I feel like God really provided me an animal, in so many different ways. So I was never truly alone, like, animal-wise, and I really feel like God was always there through an animal, which is really, really cool. Yeah, this one was actually done, cost like 50 quid. Well, I didn't say the price of the red panda. Red panda was like 40 quid. This one was about £50 in a studio called Fine Line, and I don't remember the name of the guy that did it, but he was my friend's, like, a family member of my friend, so and I believe he owned the studio as well, but he did a very good job. Okay, so moving on to my fourth tattoo, and her name is Froggles, and this is the only tattoo that has actually got, well, a name for what it is, in the sense of, like, I've in a way humanized it with this name. And I'm guessing that you can already tell that with the name Froggles, she is a frog tattoo. Here she is. I've been told that she looks like an Animal Crossing character. I've never played it, so I won't be able to tell you, but here she is. The reason why she's mainly black and white with red cheeks is because the artist at the time didn't do colour other than red. So if I ever want to, I can get this coloured in, which I plan to at some point. And this one is my first tattoo that actually represents a part of my faith journey. So, when I was a kid, I was in the kids' choir, and there was a song called the Frog Song. And frog was an acronym that stood for fully rely on God. Maybe I'll do a day where I feel really silly and I record myself doing the entire dance because I remember it all and I love it. And honestly, because I remember the song so well and I remember the dance and everything so well, I remember the acronym, Fully Rely on God. And it's never left me. Neither is the meaning. So, by having a frog here, I usually actually call her my Fully Rely on God frog. I have this now visual reminder to continue to trust even when I do not fully understand what's happening around me, and not just trust, like to trust and, you know, fully rely on God in any situation. Here she is. The artist who did this, she is under the name Toad Tattoos on Instagram, and she was originally in Otley, but she has moved to another city, but you'll see it in her Instagram bio. Okay, and now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is my 5th tattoo, and it's these beautiful 2 little kitties in teacups. Now, I will say a little interesting fact about these and the frog. I wanted the frog to be, so you can see the frog is kind of really straight on my arm, and the teacups are like this. I was really hoping at the time I could get the frog slightly at an angle and the teacup straight. I just couldn't get it out into words, and so I never really spoke up, but it doesn't matter because I love all the tattoos anyway. This is another one done by the one and only Billy, and this originally was another matching tattoo with my ex-best friend. We are, like I said, ex means we're no longer friends, but that doesn't matter. She has this one on its own with a tail, and I personally, like, I love this one, but I couldn't have it on its own, so I made sure to get both. But on top of that, like I said, I don't get matching tattoos without a second meaning to it, and for me it's reference to my friendships and lessons that come from it. So it reminds me life is better with friends, so make sure not to isolate yourself, to go out and find your friends, speak to your friends, but also, like, it may have been originally connected to a friendship that has ended, but the meaning did not end with the friendship. Like, instead it's become a reminder that life still is better with that connection, and she and I are no longer friends, but they still left behind a lot of meaningful things. Like, I've learned a lot from that friendship, and we would probably have a discussion now and we would still come to the conclusion that it's best that we are not friends. So yeah, and that's fine. We have the genuinely, like, we don't need to be friends to have learned something from that friendship and to have grown from it. And yeah, really truly what I see here is just, like I said, better with friends. Find a friend, and whether or not they're no longer there and it's just one, there are other people to be friends with, so all of a sudden you can have 2, and there's so much to learn and grow from. And that's really it. Okay, my 6th tattoo, yes, number 6, is a bumblebee. This one, also done by Billy, and I'm actually really proud of Billy because I don't think any of my tattoos are really his style, because if you look at what he posts, it's very realism. It's crazy, like, they're very much realism, and this is giving realism, but it's meant to be more watercolour. But if you look at this, you know, this, you know, did I just point at these? They're not giving any of the things that he normally does, but they're still very good, and it's the same with this one. Like, it's stunning. I can put it in a bit closer. I love it. This is another one for my faith. It's a lot of faith, a lot of diligence in the Bible, and they can represent, like, abundance, discipline, community, and the strength in something small. There it is again. And how often you may be underestimated, but you're still strong. And to me, it's just like a big reminder that even when something feels fragile or potentially small, it can still feel a part of something far greater than itself. And I know there's a Bible verse where, is it in Isaiah? God is speaking about how he was going to get an army of bees from a certain area, and they're sharp, you know, quick, powerful, strong. He uses basically those words about this army of bees. And yes, in this sense, it's used as a negative, but what I'm taking from that is small, they're strong when they're mighty. And like I said, I can still be, you know, part of something far greater than what I deem myself to be. And a lot of the times, I am way more than I see myself as. I just refuse to see myself as that. Yeah, this is one of my favourites that, like, is quite underrated just because of how realistic it looks from far away. And obviously, like you probably saw when it's close up, it doesn't seem so perfect or so, like, realistic, but it does, and it's beautiful. Okay, time for tattoo number 7, and it is something similar to basically the Shards of Narsil or Anduril, which is the broken sword that was remade, or Aragorn's sword from the Lord of the Rings. This is specifically the broken part of it, but not the entirety of the Shards of Narsil. So originally it was going to be, this design is actually, I wanted this at least a year or 2 before I got my sprites. And it was originally going to be the Avenstar, but like a line work, a very simplistic piece right here. Now this piece ended up changing because it didn't feel right anymore. It was just something that I wanted. There was no meaning behind it. I just wanted a picture on my arm, and I have to be very careful about what I'm putting on my body. If I'm having something on my body, it's going to do something good. And I don't want to be down, like, be there down the line of 2 years and regret my tattoo and there not be a meaning for it. So I'm going to regret any of my tattoos because I don't, but if that happens, I want there to be a meaning there, and I'm not going to spend money to cover it up or, you know, remove it. So here we are. I want to show you this design. Here it is. This was done by the beautiful Bees ink, and I'll obviously tag her as well. And this is stunning. This is not normally a style that she does. She normally does more cutesy designs, and I'll show you in the next one that I have from her, but she did this so well. It represents brokenness, growth and difficulty, the idea that being small, feeling small, does not remove your ability to stand your ground. It's also wrapped in nature, flowers, and soft colour, just because strength and softness, they're not opposites, they coexist. And I will speak about some details. So here in Elvish we have the quote, "Not all those who wander are lost." And there's a reason why there's a Lord of the Rings tattoo here. Lord of the Rings, as it's my second obsession of life, with number one being the Chronicles of Narnia. And it is, alongside the Chronicles of Narnia, a massive inspiration into what goes on in my maladaptive daydreaming world, and it's showcasing itself and representing itself here. If you look at the story of Aragorn, he doubted himself up until the last moment. He's still getting his crown on and he's like, help. You can see that it's like there's nerves there. He doesn't really feel like he can do it, but he knows he has to do it, and if no one else does it, the kingdom's gonna fall. But the difference is, like, he's nervous about doing it, he doesn't want to make a mistake, he doesn't feel like he can do it, but he'll still do it. He has the strength, he has the confidence to go ahead and do what is right, and I love that. You'll also notice, if you can, there is a little heart on the hilt. Either way, I'll put an image. I specifically said to Bea, after she'd already spent hours designing the tattoo, I went to her, "I'm so sorry, I love your designs, can you add a heart somewhere into the piece that feels intentional?" And I love how it's right on the hilt. That's where you hold the sword, and I love that. And I love to spread love and share love, and you can do that all the time. And I just feel like, absolutely, I needed it in this image itself. And I want to also mention how the strength can showcase, how it showcases itself for me. I will always be reminded of the scene in the Fellowship of the Ring where Boromir picks up this specific part of the sword and he cuts himself on the sharpness of what is that broken bit here, which showcases how the sword is still sharp and it's still dangerous. It's just broken. And like I said, it is a sword that was eventually remade, and it was still deadly, just way deadlier because it was completely remade and it was put in the hands of the right person. Okay, and this is another tattoo with my 8th tattoo that is to do with my faith. I just remember with this one, before I show you, that the studio that I normally go to get my tattoos done by Billy, they had a £10 tattoo day, and you can see where this is going. And this is a day where I believe they do it for charity, so a lot of the money that they get is sent over to charity. Obviously they are still paid for the work that is done. Yeah, and they post on their Ultimate Ink Tattoo Facebook page all the designs. There's like 1,000+ designs, and they are limited, so you can get like a page or 2 A4 pages of one design. And I remember I looked through all of them and I was deciding between an Ariel tattoo or 3 butterflies, and I knew they were going to go on this wrist, on my right wrist to be exact. And I knew I was getting one of these tattoos, but I didn't know which one, and I cannot lie, I was leaning towards the Ariel tattoo. If you've met me in person and you have seen my wrist throughout this video, you will have noticed that I ended up picking the butterflies. Now, I don't remember this poor guy's name. I will have to find his Facebook chats in my messenger to put his name up, because I didn't get Billy that day. I think he went home ill, so, and the thing is, you don't go in and request an artist, you go in and an artist that is free will take you. And he was amazing. He spoke to me throughout the entire appointment, which I love. I will say nothing against Billy, he's just not a talkative person. He like focuses in on what he's doing, and this guy did such a good job doing this. And I was nervous because the wrist hurts, and I was going to get the Ariel tattoo around my wrist like a bracelet. But how did I pick this? So it was a Sunday, and I make sure on a Sunday that my intentions are very clear, that Sundays are for God. I had been at church and I'd done worship first and second service, and I was specifically listening to my Christian music playlist, and I got on the bus and I went straight to the studio. And yeah, I remember on the bus I was like trying to decide which one, and I couldn't decide. And yeah, like I said, I was leaning towards Ariel, but in the end I picked the butterfly, and that's because while I was on the bus, I prayed for the advice on whether or not I should go for Ariel or for the butterfly or for something else. And I'm telling you right now, if I got the answer that I should not have got anything, I would have got off the bus and crossed the road and got on another bus to come back home. And I got a vision of butterflies, and so I got them, and I got the name Freedom in Christ. And each part of these butterflies, they represent my faith. So we have my worship, my prayer life, and my relationship with God, which are 3 things that actively need to be worked upon. And they may feel small and insignificant and delicate, specifically like Faramir in The Lord of the Rings, but it is not. I actually, when I was describing this to create a script, I even mentioned like it may have been the cheapest tattoo that I got for price wise, and like there's no colour on this one, but every other tattoo is colour. But it has so much more quality to it. And as like a chance for Faramir, Captain of Gondor, to to showcase his quality. And it's the same with Faramir. He was small. He seemed small, insignificant. Not as good as Boromir in his eyes and in his father's eyes. But in the end, he showed the most quality out of them all. And it's the same with this one. And this is one I see every day, and I never get tired of seeing it. Specifically because not all sleeves go up here, and mine tend to fall. And I love it. Genuinely love it so much, and it's such a good reminder for all of us out there. Now, the final tattoo I will be speaking about is another Lord of the Rings tattoo, and this one is a lot more personal than I think most of the other tattoos, because it directly represents a part of my life, and it was intended to be my final tattoo, but because we had city pass in December, I do feel a very big urge to commemorate her with another one. However, that takes a lot of time, intention, making sure I get the right artist, the right design, the right things done. So we'll see. But even if I got that one, there would be no more. And so you'll notice here we have Thranduil and we have Legolas in the Studio Ghibli design, and they're purposely facing away from each other. Like the sword here, it is mainly black and white shaded, and then there's little dots of colour. And that same here, mainly shaded with red and greens, and yeah, basically that's it. This piece is genuinely so much more complex than the others. It really reflects this emotional distance and strained connection, and not through blame, but through just honesty, through the experience of relationships that exist more through duty than emotional closeness. Like, if these two were facing each other, it would showcase a relationship that was held together by love, and this is a relationship held together by duty. And you can really see that in The Hobbit, which is why, when Legolas leaves, it's such an important step for him and his father, for them to separate. And basically it just also shows that not everything in life is going to resolve itself quite neatly, and some things are just going to simply exist as they are. And the colours are very deliberate. They're subtle, restrained, and placed carefully to reflect the tension, nature, and emotional separation. So the only colours you actually see here are the greens that are on the leaves, and also like the little backgrounds. And you'll see the red flowers, and the red flowers on Thranduil's crown. Yeah. I needed something to stand out. And this piece just showcases not a story of hate, a story of distance, and learning to understand it without rewriting it. And another intentional thing I can specifically say about this one is, what I love is, Legolas's head is not as high as Thranduil's. They are not equal. Because I cannot speak for Thranduil, I can speak for Legolas. Through my own experience, Legolas feels he can never be up to his father's level. He will never be equal through status, through how their relationship has turned out, stuff like that. As Thranduil's king, he is just prince. Like, he'll never be on the same level. Never. And Thranduil may not feel that way, but I can't speak to him. But they're both looking away, and on different levels, physically as well, which is another thing keeping them apart. I relate to this in a relationship with a very specific family member, which I shall not name, but this was a very significant piece for me to close on. It genuinely felt right to close my tattoo era with this piece, and I'm telling you, there are loads of other tattoos I wanted. For example, a nice Japanese fox tattoo. It would have gone on my thigh. Like, there's so many that I wanted, and I didn't get it. This felt like the closing piece, and for me, this represents that relationship I have with a specific family member, and I want to remain, when I look at this, I want to remain, civil. I want to remain civil. I'm going to remain as polite as possible. I will try, but also I need to protect myself. So this is why, in a way, that is there, and it reminds me of that, and it's a story of what I've overcome as well, because I've overcome a lot with this. And yes, this tattoo was done by the wonderful Bees Ink as well. So she did 2 of my tattoos, and then you've got 1 from Toad Tattoos, and the rest are all done at Ultimate Ink, with 1 just not being done by Billy. Like, And I want to thank these artists truly because they are amazing. I love every single one of the pieces that they did. What went well, what didn't go as well, because I feel like everything that happened truly was meant to happen and really showcased a part of my story and the meanings behind each of these tattoos. Yeah. So to reiterate, these tattoos, they are not just images on my skin. They're a record of what I've learned about myself, in my faith, my relationships, and the ways I understand the world, which also showcase visual reminders of just how to keep on going, what I should continue doing. And each one is a very important moment that I choose to keep here. And together, they form this set of Tweedle lore. Yes. Well, I have now discussed all of my tattoos. I will post another video describing why I think it's okay to have, personally for myself, to have a tattoo as a Christian after this. But I'm going to say goodbye for this video, and I'll see you in that one. Goodbye.